Yeah, so something to monitor. I do think Al Horford is one of the more interesting pieces that's still out there. We have some restricted free agents that haven't signed. Jonathan Kuminga being at the top of that list. The Warriors, of all the teams in the NBA, the team that has had the least impactful offseason to this point has been the Warriors. But they have Kuminga. But other than that, Horford, who has been tied to Golden State pretty significantly in the last week, Horford's a big domino.
He's the biggest one left.
Yeah, depending on what happens with Kuminga. Certainly, if you're a contending team and you're trying to get a piece,
Al Horford's the biggest domino left. Jonathan Kuminga is an interesting long-term piece. Al Horford is the biggest domino left on the board.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so that is something to point out. Okay, so the first batch of player signings came in today. And Bobby sends us all the details. And this is one of the things that we do, take a look at the ins and outs and all of the finer points of each contract to sort of see, what's relevant going forward. Because sometimes when you hear, contracts, you're like, so-and-so signed for 3 years and something million. And then you get the numbers later and it's like, actually it was only like a year guaranteed. So
some years they're interesting, some years they're less interesting.
Yeah. So there's just a few things. First off, like DeAndre Ayton's second year of his contract is a player option. He can become a free agent again in a year, which I actually think is a good thing for the Lakers, because I think anything that incentivizes and activates Ayton to really press the gas pedal at all is a good thing. And the idea that he can play for free agency next year, I think that's actually a good thing. And if he opts out, then they'll deal with it. And stuff like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the 4-year deal that he signed in the sign and trade with the Hawks. The last year of that's a player option. He can get out of that, stuff like that. I found it, somewhat interesting that, the Cavs gave Sam Merrill a 3-year, $38 million contract, and it's fully guaranteed, no options at all. But
4 years, just for people listening.
What did I say? 3? I'm sorry.
Yeah, 4 for 38, but fully guaranteed, no options.
Yeah. So there's
real
stuff like that.
Real sign of faith in him. He's going to be a key piece for them next year.
Yeah. The Lakers, I'm not sure what their strategy here is, but the contract that they gave Jake LaRavia and the contract that they gave Ayton do not have raises in them. They're flat, which is an indication that they're keeping their eye on 2026. They're trying to,
Well, they have currently one player under contract, Nick. Well, 2. They have Jake LaRavia under contract and Jared Vanderbilt under contract for next year.
Right. So they're trying to maximize that, even if Ayton picks up his option. They're I know some people have been talking about the Lakers looking at 2027 as like a big free agent year. Well, their actions are indicating that they're also eyeing 2026. First off,
they got to convince a certain dude to sign between now and next summer.
Well,
so
true.
They should probably be focused on that.
Oh, well, of course they are. But, they didn't, everybody's got their story. The LeBron side is very clear that they didn't ask, they didn't ask for extra years. I'm skeptical of that. Whether they asked for it or whether they wanted it are two different things. But
they expected it to be offered. Right?
Yes, right. So there's this whole term about offer and ask and all this stuff. But
sure.
Long story short, the Lakers don't have LeBron under contract for next year, and then the contracts that they have signed are protecting next year's money already. So just note stuff like that. But Bontemps, you noticed something that you mentioned earlier with Gerson Yabusele that I think
full credit to Stefan Bondi from the New York Post, my old pal on the Nets beat, who reported this first either today or yesterday. But Yabusele took $200,000 less on he signed for the taxpayers mid-level exception, which is supposed to be about $5.7 million. He took $200,000 less. He signed for $5.5 million this year, which the Knicks are bang up against the second apron again, like they were last year. We've talked about Brock Aller, their cap guy, before. He does a great job lining things up. And by taking that little bit of money less, I double check with Bobby Marks to make sure this is accurate. They now have the ability to sign an extra player to the vet minimum this offseason, which if he hadn't done that, they'd have had to do some maneuvering to be able to do so. And for a Knicks team that, getting Jordan Clarkson, we'll see how much of an impact he can make. I think Yabusele is going to be a really good piece for them. He had a really good year last year for the Sixers, has gotten way, way better than his failed first stint in the league when he was in Boston after they drafted him in the first round back, I think it's 16. But I think he'll help them a lot off the bench. But they've got minutes to play on the second unit. There's still some interesting players available for the minimum that they could potentially go get. And that gives them the ability to go sign an extra guy, which could prove quite useful for the Knicks this offseason under Mike Brown.
And by the way, that contract that Yabusele signed, which was 2 years and $11 million, he has a player option. So he can be a free agent next summer as well.
Probably part of the give back on getting that done too.
Yeah, I'm sure. So those are the kind of things that we're musing about on July 6th, 2025, to be honest with you. We're looking at these types of things. And there'll be more in the next, because not all the stuff are done.
Yeah, this is only the first tranche of contracts coming through. Get a lot of emails next few days.
MacMahon, in your corner of the world, something interesting passed through social media on Sunday. Maybe it was Saturday night, Sunday, involving newly re-signed Dallas Mavericks point guard Kyrie Irving, which, looking at his contract, by the way, he has a player option in year 3, which we already knew, and it's for 3 years, $118.4 million. He will make 36.5 this year. He opted out of how much?
43.
43. So he's taking roughly a $6 million reduction in the first year to add roughly $80 million in guarantee.
Well, and more so, the reason he took that reduction was to add D'Angelo Russell to the roster.
That was nice of him. That was very nice.
I mean, that's why they needed him to take a pay cut.
Did they need him? Did they need him to do that? Did they need him to do that?
Really? I mean, I guess you can argue there were other ways they could have gone about it, but that's the way that.
I also mean, like, what was the market for D'Angelo Russell, really?
Well, the market was taxpayer mid-level because that's what he got.
Clearly.
All right. But Kyrie was, something happened on social, was a comment that he made during was it a Twitch session? I know.
I believe so. It was one, I don't know Twitch. I've never been on Twitch, but a streaming session, yes.
Okay. Go for it. Go forth.
Oh, you want me to read it? No. All right. I didn't realize I was the one who was going to be tasked with reading this. I don't have it.
You are tasked.
Okay. I don't have it ready to roll, but I will find it. And I will say that I've been informed that this is not like a fresh comment. He apparently made this comment weeks ago. I don't know why the aggregation machine.
I think I know why. I think because in the excitement over just the Mavericks in general, and his contract in general, there was like some belief that, I don't know who said it first, but there was like, he could be back, around the All-Star break or something like that.
January is what Shams reported.
Shams said that. Okay.
Yeah, and not that he would be, but that he could be back as soon as the goal.
Okay.
The goal was to be back by January, which always was like, man, that's a really optimistic goal.
That's a 9-month window.
And the people I talked to with Mavericks, like, hey man, if he's back by the All-Star break, we'd be very happy with that. We'd feel good about that. But this is Kyrie. He's asked if he'll be back by the playoffs. And he said, don't hold your breath on that. I don't want to make any predictions on when I'm going to be back. I just want to be back 150,000% better.
Me too.
Yeah, that's tough math. But so I'm taking my time right now to really get healthy. And, listen, I think first of all, this is just Kyrie kind of like speaking freely, right? It's not like he's not in like a press conference mode. It's just kind of, babbling, as Bontemps might say. And I think if you ask him, his answer might change day to day
I would agree.
and
Yeah,
hour to hour. But it is like he absolutely should take his time to
of
make sure
course.
that he's completely healthy before he returns, however long that takes. And for Jamal Murray, it in a very similar time frame in terms of an ACL, he missed the entire next season, including the playoffs. That I'm not, in no way am I trying to predict anything on Kyrie, but I'm just saying, like, hey, these things, there's the physical recovery, there's the mental hurdle that they've got to clear to come back. And I do think there's been a lot of presumption in the discussion about the Mavericks that Kyrie's going to be back to being Kyrie this season.
Right. I'm seeing a lot of that. Like, oh man. I mean, like, and
We got asked about it. We got asked about it 17 different ways on TV last week. All three of us did.
Right.
Are the
And
Mavericks contenders? There's kind of the fact that D'Angelo Russell is the only guard. First of all, the fact that D'Angelo Russell is the only guard on the roster, essentially, at this point.
They did resign
who's
Exum
healthy.
too, but sure.
I mean, Dante Exum is not an on-ball guy. I mean, he's a nice role-playing defender at the guard spot, but he's not an on-ball guy.
Can I interest you in Jaden Hardy?
Like
he
I
likes
said,
to shoot.
the fact that D'Angelo Russell is the only guard on the roster, basically, it baffles me.
The only
It
point
continues to baffle me that in February, when the Mavs made this trade, they then traded Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin, who couldn't walk, and they never went and got another guard then, which you could argue helped play a role in what happened with Kyrie later because he was playing the most minutes in the league over the next month. But they still haven't addressed it now, really. And now they're going to, in theory, go into next season with Cooper Flagg running point. Jason Kidd's talking about. Like, I think that would be good for Cooper Flagg for a team that's allegedly got a 3 to 4 year window, and we're in year 2 of it. That does not seem like the best way to try to have a contending team this year because they're going to have to win games.
Yeah. And one other thing on Kyrie, when you're counting up the months, which I'm sure people will, he did have the injury on March 3rd. Bad day for the Mavericks. He didn't have the surgery until 3.5 weeks later at the end of March. So, and look, there's much different reasons for that. But the key is he really didn't start his recovery until April.
You basically got to count. You got to start basically from April 1st, not from March 1st.
Exactly. So even if you're going to count the optimistic window, you just keep that in mind.
And look, the Mavs are a fascinating team. And if Kyrie can be back healthy, like if they're healthy in March and April, they will be an interesting team. I mean, they were going to be an interesting team last year. I mean, that's the craziest thing about the Luka trade to begin with is that, we kept getting asked, like, again, I'll refer back to TV last week. You kept getting asked about the Lakers and Mavericks rosters. Like the Mavericks roster is dramatically better than the Lakers roster. Like they got a bunch of good players. So, like it's easy to forget because of everything that's happened. They were in the finals a year ago. Like it's not like they were bereft of talent at any point. So if they can get Kyrie back healthy, they are going to be awfully interesting. It just, again, it's why it's strange to me that we're sitting here in July and they did nothing to help the guard spot besides sign D'Angelo Russell.
Well, and when you looked at the roster, there was it was reasonable to wonder, okay, hey, are they going to take some of this front court depth and make a deal to address the backcourt? Are they going to trade Daniel Gafford for an offensive creator? And they signed Gafford to an extension. It is an extension that makes him trade eligible immediately. But certainly seems that their plan is to move forward with Gafford at least this season, which, I get. Like Derek Lively II's really good and has had some real durability issues. And then PJ Washington, I'm not so sure PJ Washington's not starting alongside Cooper Flagg. Nico Harrison made a comment about Cooper coming in for his workout when he visited before the draft, and PJ was there, and Nico said, he looked over at PJ, said, "You think you can play with this guy?" And PJ's like, "Oh yeah, I can play with him." And I think PJ, he's eligible for an extension next month. I think there's a pretty good chance that gets done. So, for the Mavericks to have any real hope of being a contender, they do need Kyrie back to being something close to himself. He's going to be turning 34 in March, coming back off a serious injury. I think like the most like realistic hope is that, hey, he can come back sometime around the All-Star break. That would give him a couple of months to kind of ramp up at the end of the regular season. You can kind of steadily build him up in terms of minutes and, his rhythm, chip off the rust. And then hopefully come playoff time, he's gotten himself to a point where he's playing at the kind of level that we're used to seeing from him. But it's, I just think to be fair to Kyrie, you can't like bank on that and count on that and consider it a disappointment if he doesn't get back to being that guy this season.
Fair enough. All right. So as we watch the remaining things in free agency, in addition to Al Horford, I'll just Bontemps mentioned Quentin Grimes before. He's a restricted free agent with the 76ers. Josh Giddey, a restricted free agent with the Bulls. Kuminga, a restricted free agent with the Warriors. There's one more significant one I'm forgetting. But we're not
definitely the three most interesting.
Yeah, we're not seeing anything get done there yet. Also, after we saw Jabari Smith Jr., whose contract came across today too, he is 5-year, $122 million, which is what it was to the penny, extension. We haven't seen any of the other guys on their rookie deals getting any of those done. And the only thing I'm going to say is last week, something happened deep in the NBA weeds that I think has chilled the market a little bit, a longer term, which is that after the projection was that the salary cap would increase by 10% next year, that it is now only projected to increase by 7%. Now, you may say, I mean, if you've stuck with us this deep into this particular podcast, you probably care about this. Now, you may say, well, 7%, 10%, whatever. But the thing about it is that right now is when the new media rights deal is coming in. This is the first year of it. And the salary cap is only allowed to go up by 10% a year. And so with it's, the media rights deal is increasing by over 2 times. It's more than twice the increase is more than doubling it. And so there was like this belief that the NBA salary cap was going to go up 10% for 3 straight years just to fit this in. And the reason it's limited to 10%, by the way, is because way back in 2016, the last time this happened, there was the famous cap spike where all of it came in and the cap exploded in 1 year with the new media rights deal.
Where the 73 win Warriors got to sign KD.
Exactly.
That's why.
The famous cap spike. So
this time there was planning.
Right. So, but the fact that it came in at 7%, and so and so you may say, well, why did it come in at 7%? Why not 10 if there's this new media rights deal? And the reason, from what I have been told, and Bobby contributed to this, is that the regional sports networks, all of those that are struggling, in baseball, it's been a big thing, but regional sports networks, uncertainty and lack of.
It's not uncertainty. It's the league. I mean, the answer is the league has lost a ton of money, right? Because the regional sports network have cratered across the board.
Right. And you got a bunch of these teams doing the do-it-yourselfers, like the Mavericks. Their Bally's deal went up in smoke. They had to do it.
The Mavericks used to get $90 million a year for their local rights deal. They're getting a fraction of that now.
Yeah, that's just $1 million last year.
Right. That's just one of. There's probably half the league that is in a situation like the Mavericks. Now, they weren't all making $90 million a year. Some of them were making less. A lot of them were making less. The Mavericks had a really good deal. At least I think it was $90 million. But the point is, the league has lost a lot of money in that area, and they have not found ways to replicate it yet. And so because of that, the projections are in lower than they were originally going.
Right. So initially when teams were thinking about their next 3 years, Bobby talks about this a lot. As a front office, it's typical to think in 3-year increments. And as they're negotiating these contracts, they were for a long time thinking that the cap was going to go up 30% the next 3 years, 10 this year, 10 next year, and 10 the year after that. And now they're being told maybe only 7 next year. And then when you think about that third year from now, like what if it's less? So I was talking to a team over this weekend that says they have revised all of their projections and they're now only assuming 5% growth the next 2 years.
Right.
Just to
and
protect
just for
themselves.
Well, and just for hard math, right? So people understand this. So if as this year the cap went up 10%. So the tax or the salary cap was $154.6 million this year, right? So if the cap had gone up by the full 10%, it would have been basically $170 million. It would have gone up about $15 million, right? Next year, the salary cap is at 165, so it's $4 or $5 million less. And the luxury tax line is now at almost 201 million flat. It would have been at 206.6. So when you look at when you have teams trying to project forward on what they're doing, and there's a lot of teams that have a hard line of we're not going to go in the tax or we're not going to go much over the tax. $5.5 million is the taxpayer's mid-level exception. That's Gershon Yabusele, right? Or if you have teams that are banging up against the second apron, that's the difference between adding a player like that or not, or making a trade or not. So that's where this stuff compounds and matters, because all those things are tied to how much the cap goes up. And if it goes up less than people think, it sends a lot of stuff over to the side from where it was supposed to be.
Okay. But like Paulo Banchero, that's one where you figure that's like going to be as soon as they can, boom, it's done type of deal. Like, what are they negotiating? Like, how can they? They can't cross the full boat.
I suspect we're going to hear about that pretty soon.
Well, the only thing that makes sense is if they're negotiating, hey, if they're holding a firm line on a player option.
I suspect we're going to hear about that pretty soon.
Yeah, that has been floated. But beyond the Bancheros of the world, like if you're thinking about, what you're going to sign, like if you're the Thunder, and you've spent a bunch of time computing how you're going to fit Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren into your planning with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Alex Caruso and the other guys that you have.
Well, their situation actually works a couple different ways, because like their extensions are going to be a little bit smaller than they were going to be because they're going to go online next summer in what's a little bit less money environment than you would have expected. Same for potentially down the road, Devin Booker, whenever he gets done sometime in the next few days.
Yeah.
His extension will be a little bit lower than it was expected.
So yeah, again, to put hard numbers on this, for months now, we've been talking about how Devin Booker was in line to get a 2-year, $150 million extension. Mm-hmm. And there was that real simple, $75 million a year. Like, richest, now it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's actually beyond that. But the revision of that salary cap number, Bobby said it's actually not going to be 2 and 150. It's going to be 2 and 138, maybe. So a $12 million difference in that 2 years. So anyway, I just want to point out that's one of the things that's potentially that staggered the league a little bit.
Yeah.
Last week.
It definitely made my eyebrows go up when it came over, because that was not at all what people were thinking.
And then for guys like Holmgren and J-Dub, like there's this Supermax escalator conversation as well. And, Evan Mobley is an example of a guy who there were Supermax escalators, but it wasn't like if you're eligible, you get full boat. I forget all the different clauses that were in there, but, based on how you qualified, he was going to get, certain percentages of it.
He got Defensive Player of the Year, so he got all of them for all 30. But for all NBA, it was this tiered thing. I don't remember the exact numbers either, but it went up by team that he was on.
Well, and J-Dub just came off an all NBA season. Like certainly he's he's obviously a candidate for that. And
And you've
Chet,
got two guys already off the board next year, and Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton, and frankly, a third in Kyrie Irving, just off the top of my head, who are all not going to be eligible, who typically would have a shot at it.
yeah, and
So,
Chet's going to be, if he can stay healthy, I think has a chance to be in the All NBA conversation, and he certainly has a chance to be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. As great as Lou Dort is, and he was first team All Defense this year, Chet, if he stays healthy, will be their best Defensive Player of the Year candidate.
Yeah, so interesting little tidbit worth monitoring. Who knows what will happen this week in the NBA? We really didn't get a lot of action over the weekend. That's typical of the league. Over the 4th of July, when it falls over a weekend, people need a little bit of a breather. Hey,
there's also just not that much business left at this point,
breaking
really.
news, McMahon.
Uh-oh.
Breaking news. The
What do you got?
Mavericks just officially signed Russell.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
So, yeah, that's big. All right. Thank you very much to Jackson, who's back from his break. And thank you to McMahon and Bontemps. Oh, by the way, tickets still available.
Oh,
Saturday night coming up. HoopCollectiveLive.com, 6 p.m. Pacific.